Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I've seen some interesting comments lately that kind of made me laugh, and it kind of goes to show how detached from reality not only a lot of people are, but how detached from reality a lot of people out there in the fitness world who either make YouTube videos, Instagram, things like that, of how unrealistic of a message they portray. And that's that there are people who are actually saying, you know what, Jason, I haven't come to your channel in a while, and I was here months ago and looked, and you haven't made any gains in the gym. You're not any stronger now than you were 6 months ago. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on scaling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And the reason that's funny is that I'm down 46 pounds this year. I'm 46 pounds into a cut as an advanced lifter in my 40s who's not blasting gear. And that should tell you guys something about how this channel really is for the real person, the everyday Joe, particularly guys who are getting a little older who just want to get strong and as jacked as possible without getting hurt, versus all the nonsense that we see out there and the nonsense that people portray. Because the truth is, for most of you out there, let's not even talk about cutting yet. Let's talk about just being more advanced lifters. Let's be realistic here. Any of you guys out there who are benching 300, squatting 400, deadlifting 500, right? You're hitting some of those base numbers, 200-pound press. If you're hitting those numbers and you're a middle-aged lifter, unless you are willing to bulk and gain a lot of weight, or unless you're willing to start blasting some gear, any gains in strength you make are going to be tiny. They're going to be slow. You know, it's not even, you're no longer going to be looking at, hey, how much strength or size or whatever can I gain over the next month? It's going to be literally, what can I do in 6 months, or what can I do in a year? Can I put 5 pounds on my bench press or 10 pounds on my bench press over the next year? That's what you're going to be looking at, particularly as we start to get a little bit older, and particularly after you've already built a pretty big strength base. Once you're getting towards being an advanced lifter, the gains just don't come anymore. It's a slow process, and you're going to have to put in a lot of work for every little bit that you gain. And that's not trying to discourage people. That's just being realistic. And if you're not realistic in your assessment of what to expect, how do you program for it? In other words, people will say silly stuff like, oh, you shouldn't put limits on any of this. And it's like, well, the human body is limited. The human body is limited, and the more advanced you become, the more limits you have. I can assure you right now that even genetic freaks at the top of their game, like Usain Bolt, I promise you he's going to struggle. No matter what he believes about his limits, I can assure you he's going to struggle to improve any more than he is right now. The amount of work it would take that man to get 1% better, 1% better would be astronomical, if not almost impossible. Because there are limits, even for people who are at the very top. You know, if there were no limits, people would be bench pressing 2,000 pounds. They'd be deadlifting 5,000 pounds, right? Because if there's no limits, you have to be realistic. And this idea that you don't have limits, if you don't believe that you have limits, and you don't understand the stress recovery adaptation cycle, and you don't understand diminished returns, how in the world are you going to write a program? How could you possibly write a program for yourself? Or people out here who are talking about, oh, there's no limits, you can just do whatever. How are they going to coach anybody else? Because do you really think you're going to make a successful living coaching other people, telling them, oh, there's no limits, we'll just add, I don't know, you're benching what, 365? I think we can get you to 500 in the next year. Come on. I mean, you really think you're going to be coaching people or be a personal trainer with that sort of nonsense very long? No. Of course not. You have to understand that there are limits, and the older we get and the more advanced we get, the more this stuff slows down. The more work it takes and the more careful you have to be, the more attention you have to pay to maximum recoverable volume. You've got to pay attention to recovery. You've got to pay attention to the whole stress recovery adaptation cycle, and you better understand it, and you better understand diminished returns, or you're not going to get anywhere. Then the other thing that really kind of cracks me up is that not even like I've lost strength, guys. I'm down 46 pounds. We come back around full circle to this other topic. Does anyone honestly think, unless you are a novice lifter, that you're going to lose significant amounts of body weight and make any gains at all? Welcome to reality. Welcome to reality. I'm now 46 pounds this year. 46 pounds. You guys saw my updated shirtless pic. It's up there. I did it this weekend. I put it up, and it's up on my Facebook fan page. People honestly think that if you're not blasting a bunch of tren, do you honestly think you're going to keep 100% of your muscle and strength when you cut? Welcome to reality. I'm not saying that there's not advantages to bulking and cutting either, because there is, because we can get over to this whole idea of changing set points. We can get over the idea of muscle memory. In other words, you can bulk up to 20-25% body fat, stay there for a while, and then cut. Well, what happens when you cut? You're going to lose size and strength. You're going to lose size and strength. The only thing I have ever seen that stops that process is maybe tren, and pretty significant amounts of it, relative, depending upon how big you are and how strong you are. How much is a lot is relative too. That can do it. But again, you see these YouTubers who they go to blast gear, they end up getting ripped, and they're still over here benching 365, 400 pounds. While losing very significant visible amounts of body fat, and they get all ripped. Well, do you think that that's just their hard work doing that? That's not reality, guys. When you are cutting, when you lose significant amounts of body weight, you are going to reach a threshold to where you start losing lean mass, muscle mass, you start losing strength. Deal with it. Deal with it. You'll have to fix that on the backside of it. In other words, you'll have the muscle memory from it. It will be easier to regain it than it was the first time around. You won't have to bulk as hard, right? You won't have to bulk as hard as you did that first time, but you are going to lose some of it. And that's actually kind of the reality of it. The fact that I'm down 46 pounds and have only lost, a little bit of strength, because I have lost strength. I've lost strength, guys. Let's be realistic here. The fact I've only lost a little bit of strength, I'm actually really quite comfortable with. I think that's totally acceptable. I feel like I've lost an acceptable amount. But if anything, some of my training is getting really, really hard. Like squatting. Squatting is getting really hard for me during this cut at this point. I'm really starting to feel it. And that's okay. That just kind of goes with the territory. That's part of the whole process. That's part of the process of fat loss. And I went into this prepared to deal with that. Because, for me, it's something a lot of guys have to deal with. Those of us who value strength and we value performance, sometimes for us that ego can get in the way of when we do need to lose body fat, or we do need to trim down, or we do need to drop to a lighter weight class, or for whatever reason we're doing it for our health, athleticism, appearance. We start dieting down and we start losing body fat, and that strength starts to go down. Our maximum recoverable volume starts to go down. We can't recover as well from the harder training sessions. It tends to mess with our ego, and it makes us want to stop. We'll stop that cut. And so in my case, I've had to learn to set that to the side and say, okay, I've got to see this through, which I have been. 46 pounds, I'll probably drop 15, 20 more. Well, it's going to take time. I'm not going to get in a big hurry on that. I'm going to take my time with it. But the point is, there are times when you have to set that to the side. You have to set that to the side. And particularly for guys who the whole world's watching them. People are watching them, man. When they see what you're doing on social media or your YouTube, and they see your strength start to go down a little bit, man, that's where the people who really dislike you are going to come out. And even people who don't understand the process, they're like, oh my God, you're losing strength. You're not making any gains. What are you doing? You must not know what you're doing. It's like, no, they're just not going hard in the trend. That's all there is to it. Because the truth is, strength and muscle loss are an inevitable part of the fat loss process. Not for a novice lifter, but when you're a more advanced lifter, that's just reality, and you have to deal with that, and you have to work around it. But it is kind of comical, though, that the same people who are noticing that don't realize that especially me wearing the singlets and stuff when I lift, that they don't realize that I have lost very significant amounts of weight and body fat. That should be their first wake-up call. But again, we're not always dealing with reality when we're dealing with people's perceptions on the internet. And that's why I would tell a lot of you guys, this channel really is for the everyday Joe, the guy who is just trying to get as strong and as jacked as possible around their genetics, around their lifestyle, doing the best you can with what you have, and trying to do it as effectively and efficiently as possible, but also understanding the human body's limitations, because if you don't understand those limitations, you're not going to be able to write your training around it. You're not going to be able to program around that or your limitations, and you're going to end up really messing things up. You're not going to get the results you want because you're not realistic about it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.